The following is a hockey podcast out of Vancouver and Surrey, British Columbia. It'll only consist of a lot of puck talk and even more BS, or in actual words, banter and satire. Enjoy, and as always, go Canucks go.
Trevor, I've been saying it for months, okay? The Canucks need help in their back end. I mean on their back end. Can we do that again?
You're Locked On Canucks, your daily podcast on the Vancouver Canucks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Speaking of pain in the back end, happy hump day and welcome to another episode of Locked On Canucks.
It's Tuesday. It's Tuesday. You are
Oh, is it Tuesday? Man.
You are sipping on that Advil NyQuil. What else you sipping on, man? Trying to get over this cold and feed your family, man. Take a breath, man.
I wish it was. I have Friday off, so you know what, man?
I get it.
It feels like a Wednesday to me, man. Let's go, baby. Anyways, welcome to another episode of Locked On Canucks. My name is Trevor Beggs, co-host of Locked On Canucks, and also a Canucks Raider for Daily Hive Vancouver on post-game duty tonight, baby. Before we dive into the episode, we got to thank you for tuning into another episode of Locked On Canucks, because it is your Canucks every damn day. Part of that Locked On Podcast Network. They're doing the most for sports fans across the world. And for our show, if you haven't done so already, make sure you go subscribe and like this video on YouTube. And on the podcast side, oh baby, go follow us and leave a good old 5-star review, because we're not here without you. And we're also not here without the sponsors, man. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel, okay? You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers, you can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. We all know the Canucks, they need help on the back end, okay? Because right now, watching their defense is a pain in my back end. Is Bowen Byram the answer to the Canucks' problems? We're going to get into that on the first segment of the show. We'll also touch on a trade value for a couple Canucks, and specifically Pius Suter and Nils Hoglander. All that and more coming up. But before we get into it, let me introduce my co-host, coming to you live from the Burnaby Garden. Shout out to the Don't Doze Art Lab. Kyle Bowen, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing good, man. Doing my thing. Thinking about the Canucks. Looking forward to tonight's game and looking forward to fixing the decor of, again, your Vancouver Canucks. And this name, right? Bowen Byram, the Buffalo Sabres, supposedly, fielding calls. That's what a bad team does. There's a small chance / a big chance that, Buffalo's going to suck again. Okay, and they got this RFA and Bowen Byram, who they acquired last year for a pretty good player in Casey Middlestat. But things got to change again and again and again. And I wonder if the Canucks are looking at Bowen Byram as a prime candidate for for a decor that not only needs help, but wants to be careful when finding it, right? How much you want to give up? What type of player do you want to bring in? I know he's left-handed, but there's a small chance that the sky's still the limit with this guy. And Quinn Hughes, Hronek, Bowen Byram, and Tom Willander, that sounds futuristic, if you know what I'm saying. Now, Trevor Beggs, I did send you some stuff on Twitter, if you want to pull it out, like some of these charts, these nasty charts regarding Bowen Byram's recent play. I also saw a list grading Bowen Byram's last 10 games from some Buffalo Sabres fan. And I just saw a bunch of C+, a couple C-, a couple B's here and there, but he's been struggling. And I wonder if that means that the Canucks can get him on the low.
I mean, you would think so, theoretically, but the fact that they gave up Casey Middlestat for him, who I know he had a bit of a slow trajectory, but he's blossomed into a really solid second line center for the Colorado Avalanche. I think, Kyle, you mentioned it, right? The fact that he is an RFA, there's going to be a pressure point here about, what are you going to pay this guy? Are you going to commit to him long term when he's not really performing up to snuff right now? And the problem with Buffalo is that they're such a young team, and Bowen Byram's primary partner so far this season has been Owen Power. And, both defenders are, good young defensemen with talent. But again, you got a new coach in Lindy Ruff trying to implement a system. You got a lot of young guys trying to learn that system. And it's just a recipe for, so quite frankly, some pretty poor performances. I mean, I actually watched a good chunk of the Sabres Islanders game on Friday, and the forwards aren't getting back defensively. There's just defensive gaps all over the place. It's not a clean hockey team, and they don't have some elite goaltending to bail them out of it. So I kind of wonder Bowen Byram in Colorado, he was, pushed down the depth chart, playing in marginalized roles. All of a sudden he gets to Buffalo and he has all the opportunity in the world, but he still only played, now 30 games on the nose as a Buffalo Sabre. So to your question about getting him on the low right now, I'm going to say likely not, but potentially as the season goes on, I would say there's a chance. But for getting Bowen Byram, like what does buying low look like?
Hoglander in the first, man. Throwing another pick.
For Bowen Byram, would you even? Oh man, like would you even give up a first just as a standalone for Bowen Byram? Like I don't think Buffalo would want to do that, but would the Canucks want to do that?
I think Buffalo would not want to do that, considering like why you just you just brought up the whole Casey Middlestat thing too, right? Like that matters. The team's just a silly team. The Sabres are just a stupid team. They're like that cousin that just sucks. You know what I'm saying? They don't take their life seriously, and I think Bowen Byram. I mean, you have to be accountable and not blame your environment constantly. But if Bowen Byram is playing worse as a Buffalo Sabre, I don't know how much that has to do with him versus being a Buffalo Sabre. Because again, I just think that organization cannot be taken seriously. And it really goes back to like the whole Lindy Ruff hiring, right? Real talk. And again, I wonder if you can get this guy on the low. I want you look at Buffalo and they've signed like, I was just looking. I think they have like 3 defensemen signed up long term. Do you want to look up a 4th guy when your team sucks? Like, don't you want to make a shift? Don't you want to do something else? Bring some new people in. You know what I'm saying? And that's why I don't even think a draft pick is going to get it done. And Hoglander, like, I just feel like that's Canucks fans being delusional. That being said, don't you think that Rutherford and Alvin are looking at a guy like him to bring in? You know what I'm saying? Maybe he doesn't fit the bill as far as what quote unquote Adam Foote and Rick Tocchet like, but if you listen to Adam Foote and Rick Tocchet only, you might end up with more Vincent Desharnais. You know what I'm saying? So does this, again, fit the bill? It's unorthodox. It's somewhat out of left field. And I just know in my heart that Alvin and Rutherford have made this call. Something is telling me. My sources, my intuition, they're telling me this may be a thing.
Oh, I'm sure they made the call, right? I mean, Patrick Allvin, I think he is I feel like the guy works the phone so hard that says, he needs to put an ice pack on his ear at the end of the day before he goes to bed, I think the guy's always on the phone, but, just in terms of what the package could look like in Bowen Byram, I just personally don't see it. And I'm sure there's some skepticism among Canuck fans about bringing him in. I mean, sure, he's a 4th overall pick. He's a sexy name. He's a BC Bud. We like to have the BC Buds back here on Locked On Canucks. But I just don't know what the Canucks have that they could realistically give up for Bowen Byram. You mentioned Hoglander in a first. I think the Canucks would be loath to do that. Hoglander in a second, maybe. If the Buffalo Sabres really believe in Nils Hoglander, maybe that's an option. Like, Kyle, would you be doing that trade? I'll throw it to you.
Well, I would. I mean, they need help. I don't know if this guy's the guy. Again, you need to look at the charts I sent you. I don't know what these graphs mean and whatnot, right? The only one that makes sense to me is, again, that Buffalo Sabres fan that just graded every one of his performances. And there's this notion that he's kind of dragging Owen Power down. I need to watch more Buffalo Sabres games to believe that. But I think that, like, the Canucks moving forward as a whole would benefit from taking a swing on acquiring a top 4 guy. Who else can be that top 4 guy that they bring in? Like, Soucy and Myers are not going to be it. You want to push those guys down the lineup. Look at what's going to be happening in the offseason, like what free agents are available. I just wonder if there's a world where they just take a swing here, and it's a swing that doesn't cost them Lecker Mackey or Willander.
Yeah,
here's a guy in Bowen Byram. Like, maybe this is the guy who can learn a lot from Tocchet and Foote. And this whole Eric Brandstrom experiment has kind of showed that the Canucks need guys like this more often, throughout their decor. And like the whole, I'll be more patient with forward, right? All things considered, but the whole Vincent Desharnais, Noah Jules, and it's like, this is the player type I think you want on your team. He's still young. Adam Foote, again, can teach him the ways, and I feel like he's always been linked to the Canucks one way or the other too, right? And the homecoming, man, the West Coast bias. And dude, come on, let's be real. Rick Tocchet, quote unquote, I'm paraphrasing, but I don't think he likes Nils Hoglander like that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think there's a good chance that Nils Hoglander I know the Canucks were low to trade him at last year's deadline, but moving forward, I think there's certainly an above zero chance that the Canucks trade Nils Hoglander, and I think we'll get to more of that on the other side in terms of Nils Hoglander and Pius Suter. What is the trade value of these guys? Because I think we're both in agreement that Bowen Byram might be an intriguing piece, but I just don't know if we're trading premium assets to get this guy. I think actually you're more bullish on acquiring Byram than I am. So look, you man, you got the BC Buds back on this one.
Okay, I wonder if the Buffalo would be again like. Does Buffalo want draft picks? Like when you're trying to shift culture, because they're just a stupid, silly team. They need to be taken seriously. They need some sureness down there. And again, Hoglander in first, I don't think that's going to get it done. I think they'll field calls and they'll try to get I don't want to say toughness, but some more maturity in that dressing room. And maybe they don't feel as if they want to go all in on Byram and do what they got to do with him being an RFA and whatnot. And again, bring in some culture setters. But how about this? And this is going to piss people off. But in theory, I wonder if the Canucks, they go to Brock Besser and be like, you know what, man? We want a top 4 defenseman. You haven't signed a deal yet. We may trade you. Very similar to what Rutherford and Alvin did to Elias Pettersson last year, right? With the whole Carolina thing. I'm not saying it's a Besser for Byram thing, but I wonder if they threaten Besser with, again, a possible trade somewhere else in order to get a defenseman, and the trade-off for Besser would be take it or take less on a long-term deal. Because the more, you know how we talk about Byram being an RFA and the Buffalo needing to do something with this decision? We got to remember, Besser's a UFA. Dude.
You heard it here first on Locked On Canucks. The Vancouver Canucks are trading Brock Besser for Bowen Byram.
Oh, no.
Unbelievable, man.
No.
I get it, man. They're both the
better.
double Bs. Double Bs, buddy. That now the trade makes all too much sense for me. Yeah, definitely not. I'm not on board with that one, man. I'm not gonna lie.
I'm not saying it's gonna happen. I think Brock Besser's playing like he's 89, 90 overall. They need to keep this guy. I'm just curious to see, because I think Buffalo's gonna threaten Byram with some sort of something. He's an RFA not playing well. It's take it or leave it, or we're shipping you here. Blah blah blah. We saw what the Rutherford and Alvin did with Pettersson last year. I think these types of hard negotiations and using a potential trade as leverage is what some savage GMs do, and we could see it in both cases here.
We sure could, and we could see either Pius Suter or Nils Hoglander traded at some point. What? More about that on the other side here on Locked On Canucks after we shout out our friends over at Indeed and FanDuel. You know the deal, baby. If you're unemployed or if you're looking to hire, you need to use Indeed, okay? Because if they match better than Tinder, baby. They are your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data. And they got a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. So ditch that busy work. Sit back, relax, and scratch your what? Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. And Indeed, they don't just help you hire faster, okay? 93% of employers agree that Indeed delivers the highest quality matches compared to other job sites, according to a recent Indeed survey. Indeed, they leverage over 140 million qualifications and preferences every damn day. And their matching engine is constantly learning from your preferences, so the more you use Indeed, the better it gets. Listeners of the show, you'll get a $75 sponsored job credit, wow, to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/lockedon. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this very podcast. Locked On Canucks. Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed.
One love to Indeed. All right. One love to the Locked On Podcast Network. One love to Trevor Beggs. I guess one love to myself. All right. Doing the most for Canucks fans, talking about trading Brock Besser, acquiring Bowen Byram, trading Nils Hoglander, now trading Pius Suter. What? Pius Suter, top line winger? Not only right now, but was, a top line winger months ago in the playoffs. A pretty good player, but here we are doing that because, again, it's been the case for, 16 years of my life, but my D sucks. I mean, our D sucks. Straight up, Trevor. Pius Suter now going to be a winger, right? Atu Ratu called up. Archie Bains sent down. Atu Ratu right now the fourth line center. I don't know how long of an experiment this is. I think there's a good chance that when Dakota Joshua comes back, they move Suter back to the center and they try Joshua, Garland, and Pettersson, blah, blah, blah. But, considering how Pettersson's playing right now, if Suter looks good with them again, that might be like a short-term, long-term option right now for the Canucks, and you want to trade him.
Whoa. Okay, here's the thing with Pius Suter. We mentioned this on the show before. Every day is no. The guy's got 1 year left in his deal, paying him $1.6 million. He is unlikely to return to the Vancouver Canucks. I mean, this guy is theoretically, if he keeps playing the way he's going, is going to double his salary when he becomes a free agent, right? And honestly, when the Canucks signed him at a bargain bin price, at that point, he probably should have been a $3 million player. He was just one of those guys that slipped through the cracks in free agency and ended up signing a bargain deal. But, Pius Suter has shown in Vancouver throughout his year plus here that he's incredibly versatile. He can be trusted up and down your lineup, and he can chip in with timely goals. I mean, this guy had the last series clinching goal for the Vancouver Canucks, right? To give them their first real playoff win since 2011. Sorry to the bubble playoffs, okay? And then stepping over the past few games with, again, some guys we've talked about ad nauseum not performing in the Canucks. You get a guy like Pius Suter coming in and scoring some timely goals and some snipes at that. I mean, there really aren't a lot of flaws in his game. You can mention maybe foot speed. He doesn't really have the most dangerous shot. I mean, we've seen him, especially in the playoffs last year, kind of have a ton of opportunities to score and not score on many of them. But he's an incredibly smart, savvy player. He gets to the net. A lot of his goals are scored from the front of the net. He can kill penalties. He hasn't been on the power play in Vancouver, but I'm sure if he's on a team like Buffalo, he could get some power play time. But just a smart player to have in your lineup. And you got to wonder at that price point if there's any value in a guy like Pius Suter. And my initial reaction is not a ton, but I think if injuries hit, again, when you got a guy like Pius Suter who has only a $1.6 million cap hit and theoretically could be like a fill-in second-line center, but definitely a third-line center for your hockey team, or could play top six on the wing and be a complimentary piece, there's some value in a guy like that.
No, there is. And, you brought up the whole situation where a team could have an injury situation down the middle and they got to make a move, and a versatile player with a low cap hit like Pius Suter, who's been seen to play well with good players around him, is appetizing. But on that same note, that's the exact same reason why the Canucks should keep him. Straight up. Unless, and I wrote about this in my blog, link in the bio, unless Aatu Räty the second time around this season with the Canucks plays like Pius Suter. That's simple. Like they just show him Pius Suter film, and it may not be as easy to replicate because there's a certain level of intelligence that Pius Suter plays with. And Rick Tocchet alluded to this. I think every Canucks fan alludes to this. This guy just knows where to go. He's that smart. Doesn't have the foot speed, but he'll make it up with his intelligence and his hockey IQ, all that jazz. But there has to be some sort of replication there from Aatu Räty in order for the Canucks to consider Suter as a trade chip. And I know I think it sounds a little stupid and a little smart. Stupid being because, like, what's his value? He still is only Pius Suter. But is there a world out there where you can trade him for a number 5 defenseman that's better than Vincent Desharnais, Noel Juulsen, and Forbort? Like, I'm being literally serious. I mean, there was a time way back when, and I think this player is slightly better than Pius Suter and was also younger at the time. But do you remember there was that time where like Derek Brassard got traded for Mika Zibanejad?
Right. Yeah.
Like stuff like that. Because I think asset management for a team still in like this part of its trajectory is still relatively important. And again, Trevor, man, I never knew I'd be talking about this so much this season. I mean, I kind of did, but our D sucks, man.
Soft, man.
Like, could you trade this guy for a 3rd round pick or a 2nd round pick and then use that to add on to a bigger trade?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I'm just kind of going through trades here, and when guys like Pius Suter get traded, they are typically 3rd round pick at most kind of guys, right? Like I'm thinking of like the Jason Zuckers of the world, right?
Yeah.
In terms of guys who can kind of be at that 50-point range, but again, they're just more like secondary players in your lineup. So potentially, yes, right? To your comment about trading Pius Suter for a number 5 defenseman, I think that's theoretically possible, but it's not what the Canucks need, right? So I think what is more likely. And
true.
Again,
You're right.
Yeah,
You're
and there's not a lot of hockey trades involving guys like this. It's not like Pius Suter for number 5 defenseman. I mean, you go through a history of trades, and it is more or less You're trading a guy like that for a draft pick to make him part of a bigger package, right? And again, it would be maybe unorthodox is a bit of a strong word, but typically contending teams don't trade away good secondary players. They keep them for a run. But in this case, again, I think you make a great point. If Aatu Ratu steps up and shows that he is an everyday centerman for this hockey team, then trading Pius Suter becomes a bit more plausible for this team. Now, what I do think is more plausible this team, and we alluded to it off the top, is Nils Hoglander being traded. Kyle, maybe I'll throw it back to you. Of the two players, which is more likely to be traded this season? Or is there a chance, what is the chance the Canucks keep both of them?
Oh, man, like I said, I wrote about this yesterday, and I'm like, dude, a big reason why I think the Canucks may trade Suter is because they don't want to trade Hoglander, and they need to make room in their forward group department. Or, like, you got to give some to get some, and a good player is going to have to go out in order for this team to get a good defenseman. If you don't want to give up another first-round pick or Lecker Mackey and Willander, and Trevor, like, shut me up, but I feel like this sounds crazy, like really, really, really crazy, because I'm such a Hoglander fan. But why do I feel as if it's important for the Canucks to keep their first round picks more so than Nils Hoglander? And maybe like it's for like a bigger trade or just stocking up the cupboards. Like, I want to see this team be good longer before we go like 4 years straight or four out of our last 5 years straight or 6 years straight without a first round pick. I don't like that ish. That makes that math is like so backwards to me. You know what I'm saying? But I also find myself accepting the fact that Rick Tocchet may not be able to get to Nils Hoglander. Like, why isn't Nils Hoglander to like? I think the leash is short with him, and I still don't agree with Tocchet choosing Baines over him over the last stretch of games. But what's going on with Nils Hoglander and his inability to bring it every night? Like, you look at a guy like Kiefer Sherwood and Connor Garland, right? Like, look at their levels of intensity and what they're able to bring to the game, even when the offense is not going their way. Like, why isn't Hoglander able to do that? Because I think if he did that, Tocchet wouldn't be so hard on him.
Honestly, I know probably some people want to get to a deeper meaning here, but I think he's just maybe going through a bit of a rut, a bit of a bad stretch. I mean, look at last season, right? Hoglander was one of the most consistent Canucks throughout the entire season. And I do wonder if a guy like that, I mean, he was a third liner, he was a fourth liner, he had to scratch and claw and fight through multiple head coaches to work his way up to the lineup into a top six role. Maybe there's a bit of complacency there. I know he started on the third line to start the year, but very quickly ascended into the top six alongside Elias Pettersson. But I do wonder if that was more about getting Pettersson going than, I mean, Hoglander did score in the first couple of games, right? But I think that elevation was more about getting Pettersson going. Nils Hoglander, I think, is going to be a really good player in the NHL for a long time and be in that, 25 goal, 45 point range. But he's not, he's not a piece that's like, firmly a member of this core for the next number of years. He certainly is a guy that could be traded if you get the right guy in the door. The Canucks just got to make sure it's the right guy. And I personally don't think Bowen Byram is that guy. That feels very much like a Jim Benning kind of trade to me. Okay. But I think, again, Rasmus Andersson almost feels like the lazy name to put out there right now, but there's just not a lot of right shot D on the market that we know of. And we've kind of gone through the exercise. There's not a lot of right shot D in general that you want to pay a premium capital for. Ironically, Byron's been playing the right side in Buffalo, but he's a left shot guy. So, but yeah, with Nils Hoglander, I mean, yeah, I do think that the percentage, the odds that he gets traded are starting to increase here.
Yeah. I hate that I'm so much on the fence about it. Whereas like a couple weeks ago, I was like, we can't get rid of this guy. He's just like such an outlier. Again, to show him some Kiefer Sherwood film. Like, you don't think Hoglander can play that game every night? I know you want offense from him too, but when you're not getting the offense, like, why can't you just do that? You know what I'm saying? And I get it. Like, look at Kurt Richardson right here. Rasmus is the dream ad, right? Hoglander, a first round pick, something else and something else. That's going to give you Rasmus Andersson. Like, look, I haven't looked at what he's done over the last 6 games. I know the Flames are like really struggling right now. They're 1-5, but he seems to be like the sexy guy. Again, the whole Bowen Byram thing is like, it's just like, even though he's struggling, he still got traded for Casey Middlestat last year. I don't know how much Hoglander pushes the needle individually, so that's why we're throwing in a draft pick. And I wonder if the Canucks bring in a guy like Byram with the Hoglander trade They get some good looks out of him. He's still on the low, though. They're able to extend him long term or just for the foreseeable future. Again, on the low, you know what I'm saying? And then start building their decor like that. But all in all, the whole Hoglander thing is it's fascinating. And bro, right now, Pius Suter's the better player.
Yeah.
Offense aside, there's a floor to that guy where I think he's able to reach every game. Like you know what you're getting from him. Whereas Nils Hoglander, it's quite clear to Rick Tocchet that your ability to have lapses in your games for long periods of time, and I'm talking like 1.5 games, is long enough, and that's when the leash is cut. Whereas Pius Suter, like you never see a lapse in his game. Like sometimes you don't notice him, but you're not going to make mistakes. Like you're going to get also that effort on the penalty kill, right? Which I think he's excelled at this year. Like he's done his best job to kind of replace some Dakota Joshua minutes on the penalty kill. Like there's something there, and like, damn, are we stupid or are we dumb right now, man? Pius Suter over Nils Hoglander in a first for Bowen Byram. Like, what am I smoking today, man? Ironically, I'm not smoking in November, but maybe this is what happens when I don't smoke.
Yeah, who knows, man? It's you're just dreaming about how to make this team better, man. And maybe let's do some dreaming on the other side. Get to a few comments after we shouted our friends over at FanDuel and PrizePicks.
The following is a hockey podcast out of Vancouver and Surrey, British Columbia.
Whoops, that's the wrong button, baby. But here's the right thing to do, and that's go check out FanDuel. Okay, they are America's #1 sports book. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com today. You'll start with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch. And make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right. And if you're playing daily fantasy sports, you got to go check out PrizePicks, okay? Because they're the best place to get real money on sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. And on PrizePicks right now, you can win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. So sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play. Just $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Do you think that Connor Garland will get more than 1 goal this week? Will Kevin Lankinen get more than a win? Okay, those takes aren't even hot, but you can cook up your own hot takes or just win some money on PrizePicks. And hey, make sure you invite your friends too. So over on PrizePicks, you can download that app today and use code LOCKEDONNHL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it's time to run your game.
Run your game. People, we back doing this, and that's talking about your Vancouver Canucks. If you could do us a favor right now on the YouTube live stream, and that's hit the like button, man. Holidays right around the corner. Trevor Beggs, Santa Claus, right? Your kids don't know that. Don't tell your kids. Don't tell your kids that Santa Claus doesn't exist, right? But you're playing that part, and a like button can go a long way, man. It just makes things a little easier for Beggsy and I. Also, hit all the links in the bio. Join the Discord. The game day thread will be up shortly. And speaking of which, the post-game show. Still doing it on this feed because I've made changes in my game plan, okay? So the post-game show, the postcast here on Locked On Canucks. Hopefully Trevor joins. I know he's got to do some writing, but maybe he can join for like 6 minutes and just ramble because we do love Trevor's sultry. Is that the word? That we do love that voice, okay? Ooh. I want to touch on a comment before we completely move on here, okay? It's from Kurt Richardson, okay? He's saying that Suter is only making 1.6 and you won't get anything better for the run, right? And this is why I keep asking, like, am I stupid or am I dumb? Because this is the guy you want on a winning team. Like, yeah, I wrote about this. Link in the bio. It's all over the place. He's a player that helps raise the ceiling if he's playing at his best. And option number 2, moving him helps us possibly raise our ceiling too. Because I think there's like a world where assets are gained and then shipped off for something better on D, okay? And we're all looking for a better D. Let's be honest, okay? That being said, again, we talk about Atu Ratu. possibly being a fix, possibly getting it this time around with the second stint with the Canucks this season. But the likelihood of that happening is like 50%. And on that note, wouldn't Rick Tocchet want more ammo in his tank, especially down the middle? You get what I'm saying? Like Pius Suter is such a versatile piece. Like a part of me is like, this guy should be untouchable.
Yeah, untouchable is a very strong word, but it's why I think that Nils Hoglander is more likely to be traded than a guy like Pius Suter. I think you're going to get more value for him, and he's less versatile. And look, the Canucks got depth on the wings. They don't have depth at center, right? So I know we talked about if you trade Pius Suter, you need a guy like Atu Ratu to come up, but then your center depth behind that is Nils Amon, and then you're getting into like Max Sasson and John Stevens, right? Like
John Stevens? This guy's a what, CIA agent? What's going on here? Pretty
much, man. So yeah, the center depth isn't great. And again, Kyle, let's have some fun. Like, what are the odds that Nils Hoglander gets traded by the end of the season or by the trade deadline? Sorry,
dude, I think it's 51% right now, man.
Wow. Yeah.
Yo, you don't want to trade Lecker-Mackey. You don't want to touch Lecker-Mackey right now. Like, honestly speaking, you don't want to trade Lecker-Mackey, especially with the uncertainty around Brock Besser. You want to keep that goal scoring on lock somehow, some way. And there's a 51% chance that Lecker-Mackey's like a 30 goal scorer next year. Okay. Honestly, guy's talented, man. 4 goals in 6 games, 31 shots, whatnot. And you also don't want to trade Willander, man. You don't want to do that. You didn't have a first round pick last year. And because of that, you don't want to trade both those guys. It's one of those things. Let's get to some comments. Did you want to touch on something else before we get out of here? Okay. Look at this comment. Look at this comment from Vancouver's My Life. Okay. Kyle is no pot November. Okay. I think he's making a pun on like this whole no nut November thing. And I'm like, dude, why do people take a break from not like eating almonds and stuff? Like, I don't understand. Is it like a boycott against the peanut allergies and whatnot? I don't know. It's weird to me. It's like, there's other things that we should be like not doing. And that's like, maybe like not eating McDonald's every day. Maybe not taking a break from the coffee. I don't know. Taking a break from soda every day. But no almonds November. I don't know. I was with my friends yesterday and they were talking about how they're all doing no nut November. And I'm like, what? Relax, man. It's not that deep, dude. Not even.
You think they're just messing around with you? Because we all know what no nut November actually means.
What?
Not wanking off.
Oh, whoa. Okay. All right, man. Okay, look at this comment from Mike. Okay, Pius Suter's outplaying 11.6 tonight. Pius Suter, Elias Pettersson, Connor Garland against the Ducks. I'm done giving Elias Pettersson chances, man. You know, straight up. It's 10 games. He still didn't have any points in his last game against the San Jose Sharks. It was so hard to beat the San Jose Sharks. So hard. Why? Because Pettersson is still not being Pettersson. Now, I know Pettersson had a good shift at the end of the game that helped get the goal, and I should be leaning into that and giving him his kudos and being a good human being. But holy, man, 1 goal in 10 games. 1 goal in 10 games. 4 points in 10 games. Do the math. I think this guy has like 25 points in his last 50 games or whatever. Can we see an offensive explosion tonight? Please warm up before LA and Edmonton. Because I feel as if the pressure's not on now, it will be on Hockey Night in Canada this Saturday when the Oilers and the Canucks face each other. And if Pettersson's still going into that game with like 5 points in 12 games or 4 points in 12 games, like, dude, talking about trading Nils Hoglander, like something's gonna, like, I don't know, that's gonna get scary, man.
Honestly, with Elias Pettersson, like, how many times you said that this season, Kyle? Like, oh, it better be a breakout game tonight. It better be a breakout game tonight. I mean, I don't know what the answer is. I don't know how this guy's just gonna find his mojo all of a sudden. And I did see a clip about Paul Bissonnette from Spitting Chicklets talk about Elias Pettersson and how he's got all these skills, but he needs to have that dog in him. And he said, hopefully he finds it over the next few years. And I'm thinking in the next few years, this market, us fans, we're going to lose our minds if it's going to take a couple of years for the Elias Pettersson to get back to the real Elias Pettersson. But at that point, I think, or at this point, I should say, I think it's about lowering expectations. And I know that's no fan's going to do that. The guy's making $11.6 million, but it's like, I'm not sure what the answer is here. Like, you're trying all these different wingers, but he just doesn't have the sauce. Even in that San Jose game, right? Whether you watched him closely, I mean, I find myself when I watch him right now, I am scrutinizing every play he makes because I'm like, okay, he's got the puck. What's he going to do? And he almost always turns it over. It's just, it's really bad with Elias Pettersson right now, and I'm not sure what's going to change it.
Yeah, and you're scrutinizing him not because you're overanalyzing him. It's because he's still making mistakes, man. He's still making mistakes, and like I said, man, it's I've been kind to him, and I always support him. He's a Vancouver Canuck, but enough is enough, man. Enough is enough. You really want Miller and Hughes, etc., carrying the load for this long? Ease up the load on those guys so they could have more of a load going into April and May. Like, we all need a load. And speaking of which, I think that's why my friends are loading up in November.
Yeah.
It makes sense, man. It makes sense. Last comment goes to Static, okay? Saying, Kyle, you got to do a house tour. This is not my house. If you see the background, this is not my house. I don't live here. Well, I just spent a lot of time here, but this is just where the dreams happen, okay? And speaking of which, we're living the dream right now, Begsy and Bowen. Yeah, I get to do this. We're so blessed, man. We're so blessed. I'm so grateful. This opportunity is, I don't know, everything I kind of dreamed of 18 years ago. I think Trevor can kind of say the same, straight up. And because of that, again, I got to say thanks. Hit all the links in the bio below if you enjoyed the episode. And maybe you didn't enjoy my trade proposal involving Bowen Byram. Do us a favor, hit the like button if you're feeling generous. Christmas around the corner. Begsy, do us all a favor and sign us out.
All right, shout out from the everydayers to the first time listeners and everyone else in between. Whether you're watching us on YouTube Live or you're listening to the podcast after a fact, we appreciate the hell out of you for tuning in to Locked On Canucks. Again, Canucks and Ducks play tonight. Will I make the post-game show? Find out by tuning in. But Kyle and I will be back recording another episode tomorrow on the actual hump day, baby. But for now, we got to get out of here. I'm Trevor Beggs. That guy's Kyle Bowen. And you've been listening to Locked On Canucks.